All right, everybody. This is Dr. J, and I just want to welcome you to our next module, module number 5. And with this module, we're going to be looking at race, culture, and politics. Now, in order to explore these topics, we're going to be looking at the NAACP, the Niagara Movement. We're going to be introduced to really cool people like W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. And of course, one of my favorite Black nationalists, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Okay. Now, first, I want to give you this little bit of insight that a lot of what we do as historians is dependent on primary and secondary sources. Now, primary sources are essentially things that come right from the horse's mouth himself, okay? And secondary sources are things that somebody might have been able to observe, but didn't necessarily experience. And so oftentimes we're given both types of resources, but I love really being able to have a primary source because that means that I'm listening and I'm learning and I'm getting information directly from the people who have lived it. Now, one of the first ways that I want to give you an example of a primary resource is through a memo that was created by J. Edgar Hoover. Now, J. Edgar Hoover is responsible for heading a particular program within the FBI called the Counterintelligence Program. And I really want you to pay attention to this because we're getting ready to kind of write about the Counterintel program later on in the course. Okay. But this is a very brief transmission that he gave while being head of the COINTELPRO organization, and it is in regards to Marcus Garvey. So check that out and see what he says. He says some really curious things. Now, as I mentioned, COINTELPRO is a very uncomfortable but very real program within the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And essentially, the FBI was targeting any potential organization that could threaten the republic or could threaten the United States of American government, that can threaten democracy, that can threaten some of the things that are very, I guess, important to this nation. Okay. And unfortunately, it was created at a time where you had so many different ideologies kind of circulating at the time. You had this idea called McCarthyism, you had ideas of communism, ideas of socialism. You know that this country is a democratic state, a democratic government. And so any type of ism that threatened democracy, they targeted. And unfortunately, many of the people who were become victims of that are going to be revolutionary, Black revolutionary people, because obviously many of the things that our African American forefathers were experiencing definitely made them feel that they were at a disadvantage within this country. And so those who have fought and sometimes died for our liberation movements, they were targeted very, very much so in a very real way. And we see that start with Marcus Garvey, but we also see that legacy continue, unfortunately, still to this day. There are some people on this list who are still incarcerated because of their political beliefs. For instance, Mumia Abu Jamal is still incarcerated to this day. Another man named Leonard Peltier, who fought for Native American rights, is also incarcerated still to this day. And there's several campaigns around the nation that have been geared towards the liberation of these freedom fighters. But as I mentioned, Marcus Garvey is one of the first people that we see that's targeted under the counterintelligence program. And so I give you some key information about Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey is definitely one of the pioneers of the liberation movement. In fact, he is responsible for giving us and introducing the colors of red, black, and green to us. And he's also a member and the founding member of the United Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. So check this out and really get a sense of who Marcus Garvey is. Now, as I mentioned to you, there are several organizations that are going to appear in the scene at this time. One of these organizations is called the Niagara Movement. And the Niagara Movement was essentially started by W.B. Du Bois. And here you can get a really good sense about what the Niagara Movement was intended to do, what their inspiration was, and how they really wanted to make sure that African people were given a certain quality of life. As I mentioned, W.B. Du Bois is the person who started the Niagara Movement. And he, alongside with Booker T. Washington, were very instrumental figures at this time. Many of them were trying to resolve what they called the Negro problem. Remember, African people have just been liberated from the chains of bondage. They have been now given the 13th and 14th Amendment, and in some cases, the 15th Amendment. I think we're right around the verge where we're getting the 15th Amendment. And so everybody's wondering, what do we do with these Africans? What do we do with them? Both of these men had very strong opinions about the solution to what they called the Negro problem. In fact, Booker T. Washington is someone that kind of is after my own heart because he believed in the trades. And obviously, here at our school, we really hold a lot of energy and reverence for the trades. Booker T. Washington, ironically, is also someone that's very dear to my heart because he believed in a liberal arts education. And as an African American studies scholar, I would not necessarily be here without people like Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois. And so I don't necessarily think that either one of these men had the answer wrong. I actually think that it should have been probably a combination of both strategies. Now, they did differ on certain areas, especially when it came to race and racism and voting rights. And so I want you to kind of get a real understanding about who W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington were. And so I provide with you yet another piece of information, a nice little PowerPoint for you to reference so that you can really get an understanding of who these men were and why they're so important in our history, especially as we understand the journey of African people within the United States. Now, as we culminate this particular module, I want you to take a second. I want you to think about what do you think Booker T. Washington would say about the trade schools today or the importance of trade schools today. And of course, obviously, at our school, I would almost be curious what he would think, not only for our particular program, but for the programs that we all have been a part of, because this program is in the liberal arts department. But obviously, many of us are here taking a variety of different trades as well. So think about it, write about it, talk about it. And remember, you can always earn an extra credit point. And if you choose to do a video instead of a written response on your discussion post, okay? So make your response, make your post, and then respond to two of your classmates. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm always here to support you. And yeah, I look forward to reading your discussion boards. All right, everybody. Love you. Bye.